Fallout mods just keep getting better, and today we're going to be checking out some of the passion projects that different modders have been releasing as of late. Some pretty new ones, some that have been out for a couple of months, but I've been waiting to get a nice bundle together that makes a bit of sense together. Today we'll be checking out some new weapons, some new armors, and some other miscellaneous mods that are definitely a showing of what modders really do when they have some really cool ideas and some passion behind them. If you've been around the Fallout 4 modding scene for some time, in fact a lot of time, you might be familiar with a mod known as the Vintage SMG. This is going to be a recreation of the Rising M50 SMG, but it wasn't perfect. It was a really good, really popular mod with a bunch of cool attachments that was very good for its time, but never got custom animations. Until now. And by now, I mean 4 years ago. I just somehow never knew about this, despite being a pretty prominent person in the modding scene who checks the Nexus daily. I never seem to know about this one. Must have been there during some sort of hiatus. Today we're checking out the Anotherone Rising M50 SMG Vintage SMG Redone mod by Anotherone, aka Retro Paladin, aka GloriousWarrior. This mod is going to overhaul and re-upload the Vintage SMG in a new mod that is going to have some changes to the base mod, but most notably, it's going to give it custom animations. I truly don't know how I didn't know about this mod before. I'm a big fan of the SMG, and I think I've covered it on the channel, at least the original mod, and somehow nobody's mentioned to me that there was a reanimation. So now we're going to be covering that because that to me is very, very important. I love to see when authors see a mod that they enjoy so much that they decide to take it into their own hands to reanimate. It's happened to some of mine, and it's happened to some really popular ones, and now it's happened to this one as well. I know this mod might be a few years old, but I'm hoping that there's some of you out there who are like me who didn't know this thing existed, and I've always wanted to use this weapon, and now you actually have a really good reason to pick it up once again. Now, this Redux is going to do a couple of things. It's going to, of course, give it the new animations, which are going to require War Daddy's reanimation of the combat rifle. Not exactly sure why it requires that when it has custom animations. That's something that's beyond me, but that is something that's going to be required for this. There's also going to be some changes to attachments. This will come with an ESLified ESP, so it doesn't take up a slot in your load order. It has BA2 archives, which is always nice. So this thing's going to load a bit faster than loose files. Overall, this weapon is a nice little redux of the original. This thing also doesn't require the original, so you can just download this mod as is. It's practically a new weapon mod. It has no requirements whatsoever. Honestly, seeing this weapon revitalized is a really, really cool thing. Even though it is old, it is something that gives me a whole lot of hope for the modding scene, because this is a weapon I thought was never going to receive custom animations. But after the slew of not only this mod, but some of my mods and some other mods as well that are getting reanimated as of late, this gives me a lot of hope for the future with a lot of weapon mods out there that were just so close to perfect but didn't have custom animations. And now they're starting to get those because there's some wonderful animators in the modding scene right now who seem to be picking up that slack. It may be some time after the launch, but it's definitely out there and it's helping the modding scene feel really, really alive. Now, the next mod we're checking out isn't the newest mod either. This is known as the T-47R Power Armor by pinedog. Now, this mod did come out in 2023, but it has been recently updated and has gotten some pretty cool updates at that. And I believe there's even more updates on the way down the line. That's pretty dang cool. This mod's going to add a super high quality, lore-friendly power armor that fits really well with the vanilla art style and has some really fun features, including 8 new paint jobs, a whole bunch of decals, attachments that are unique to this set of armor, as well as a bunch of other customization. And additionally, a fun way to pick up this armor. The T-47 is supposed to be a spin on the T-45, sort of a little bit of a tweaked version that came out before the T-51. In terms of stats, this thing is going to be comparable to the T-51, so it's not going to have bad stats whatsoever. It's actually going to be pretty dang good. That being said, as you upgrade this armor, it's only going to upgrade its energy resistance, so the T-51 will be better if you continue to upgrade it compared to this one. That being said, this one is going to have a higher defense when it comes to energy weapons. So if you're fighting anybody who uses lasers, this thing's going to be really, really good. Whether you're fighting robots or synths, this might be the perfect armor for you to pick. Like I said, this armor comes with some new attachments not really featured on other power armors, including a cryo cooler, a rocket jetpack, which is apparently different from the standard jetpack, a backpack for more carrying capacity, and a terminal, of which I'm not really sure that does. Now, what's really cool is this set of power armor also comes with a unique set, which is pretty dang interesting. The standard set is going to be added to a leveled location over at Fort Hagen, so if you head over there, there is a chance that you'll find a full set of the standard T-47. That being said, there's also a unique version that is split up into 4 pieces that you'll have to obtain at different parts of the map. Now, if you don't want spoilers, the best thing you can do is go over to Nick Valentine's Detective Agency, and you'll find a list of where those parts might be at. And they're all going to be in a series of riddles. So if you don't want spoilers and you want to actually solve the riddles, that is where you should go. If you do want spoilers and you want to know exactly where to pick up the unique set, go ahead and listen now. Everybody else should tune out if you don't want spoilers. You can pick up the helmet over at the abandoned shack location in the glowing sea. You can get the arms in the Quincy Ruins Church, the torso over at Sentinel Site, and the legs at the FEV lab inside of the Institute. That is going to be quite a scavenger hunt for you. So pretty hard set of things to find, but it is a completely unique set of armor that looks different from the standard set. That's pretty cool. So if you want a one-of-a-kind set of armor that's unique to your character, it might be worth hunting them down, and they're pretty dang good as well. Overall, a wonderfully feature-complete set of power armor with skins, uniques, and all kinds of fun integration. This one's really well done. Super cool set of armor, and one I recommend downloading. Speaking of which, if you want to try this mod or any of the mods in this video, they will all be linked down in the description below. The next mod we're going to be checking out, though, is a new heavy weapon that might pair perfectly with that new set of power armor known as Selakii's Plasma Autocannon Revised. This is going to add a new heavy weapon into the game known as the Plasma Autocannon, a vanilla-friendly plasma heavy weapon, something we just didn't have. Sort of like a Gatling plasma, but with a little bit more fun, because some of the attachments for this thing are pretty crazy. You're obviously going to get a very high rate of fire plasma weapon that's going to require you to charge it up as the barrel starts to spin, and it'll start releasing projectiles at a very high speed. But there's some other attachments at the weapon's workbench that make this thing a bit more interesting, including a shotgun barrel, which means you're shooting out so many projectiles, it's honestly just ridiculous, and an artillery barrel, which is, well, it's something. It shoots out essentially plasma grenades at a pretty random direction with very high recoil at a very high rate of fire, making this thing extremely hard to control. I tried my best to hit as many targets as I could, but man, this thing has a mind of its own. That first shot is going to hit relatively where you want it to, considering you do have to still spin up the barrel, so it's not going to fire immediately. And every shot after that is kinda just wild. I had myself pulling down as hard as I could on my desk and still finding it pretty much unable to be controlled. But, all of that being said, it is still the most fun attachment in this. Trying to control it is super funny. Now, on top of all of those really fun attachments, there's also a new unique legendary known as Third Feedback. If you want to get your hands on this thing, it is sold over at the Institute. This is going to be a new plasma autocannon. If you want to get your hands on the base weapon, it is actually leveled-less injected, so you can pick up this thing pretty much anywhere you might find a Gatling laser. You might find the plasma autocannon as well. Overall, a really fun, new, lore-friendly heavy weapon, something that I know a lot of people are seeking out. This is one I'd recommend checking out for yourself. It's a really cool one. It fits the vanilla style very well, and it gives us a new use for plasma that we just didn't have in the base game. Now, this next mod we're checking out is a very simple one, but one that I quite frankly just adore. It is known as the Better Unique Pickman's Blade by spacefiddle. Now, this is going to give a new model to the Pickman Blade, as well as a new legendary effect, a new name, basically just completely overhauling the idea of what Pickman's Blade could be. Now, if you're familiar with the game, the vanilla game, that is, Pickman's Blade is just going to be a standard combat knife with a fancy little bleed effect. You get it after clearing out the Pickman's Lair dungeon, and that's it. But this mod is going to make it a little bit more interesting and maybe worth your time. First of all, it's going to give you a brand new model for the weapon. Completely unique knife that is one of a kind, something that I feel like Fallout 4 was just missing. Something that was present in games like New Vegas, but Fallout 4, all the uniques are just kind of legendaries that aren't really that cool. This mod's going to give it a cool, unique look with a custom blade as well as a custom handle that features some of the paintings that you see in Pickman's gallery. I think that that's a really cool design that makes a lot of sense. A completely custom knife that is perfect for a crazy killer like Pickman. Additionally, the unique has been renamed from Pickman's Blade to Brushstroke. It has the wounding legendary effect, making targets bleed for additional damage that will stack every time you hit them. And since this thing swings really fast, you can get some pretty crazy bleed stacks with this little knife. It is a lot stronger now than the vanilla Pickman's Blade, because this isn't just a visual overhaul, it actually changes the way the weapon functions as well. This thing's going to have significantly increased damage, which helps with the fact that it now has no attachments. That being said, the base damage for this thing is higher than the best attachments on the combat knife, so it's definitely a pretty fair trade. Apparently, another fix with this mod is it's actually going to fix the bleed effect, because apparently there was a vanilla bug in which stacks weren't working correctly, and this mod is going to address that so that this knife works exactly as intended. Overall, you couldn't really ask for much more. This is a great overhaul to an existing vanilla unique. Something I never really sought out because it was just another combat knife, but now it's a really, really cool thing to add to your collection. Really hope to see more people taking this approach to the uniques in-game, either adding more fun unique weapons to find, or overhauling the existing ones. Unique Uniques is a wonderful mod, but it is starting to get a little outdated, and seeing more stuff like this might be a really, really cool thing to see for Fallout 4. And finally, this is going to take us to the last mod of the video. A very interesting mod that's been out for a little bit. Been waiting to cover because I just didn't really know how to cover it because it adds, honestly, too much content. This is known as the Combat Rifle Attachment and Weaponry Expansion Rat Runner's Arsenal by Spady. This mod is going to add a whole lot to the combat rifle family. Now, you may know the combat shotgun from Fallout 3, and that got a new partner known as the combat rifle in Fallout 4. Well, this mod is going to add even more. 5 new combat weapons to be part of the combat family, as well as 4 new combat uniques to find out in the world. You're going to be getting 9 weapons in this pack, which makes it very difficult to cover. But there's going to be a bunch of new weapons, all of which are going to be super cool, super unique. Some of them even having munitions integration, adding some new ammo types to the combat series, which is going to make them really, really cool. And the uniques are even more unique than you would expect. Some of them being completely new weapons that are one of a kind, and some of them being some interesting changes to the existing weapons in this pack. On top of that, you're also going to get a handful of new attachments that are going to be universal across all of these weapons, as well as the combat rifle from the vanilla game. What's pretty interesting too is most of these seem to work with the attachment pack innately. You can use my stocks and different attachments with some of these weapons, which is pretty cool. The way that Spady set these up is very interesting. Some of them just utilize the existing combat rifle attachments while still having their own unique attachments as well. These things are pretty dang cool and pretty fun. So let's go ahead and start talking about them because there are a lot to go through. For starters, we have the Soviet machine gun, which is going to be a new combat machine gun, or submachine gun rather, that is very much inspired by the PPSH. This thing will start spawning at level 5 and it will make use of 7.62 Tokarev from the munitions mod. A very, very high fire rate with big magazine size for an SMG, a very cool option for this weapon, and it looks great. The combat weapons, at least the original combat shotgun, was very clearly inspired by the PPSH, so this thing fits right at home perfectly. There's also a new weapon known as the Co-Battle Rifle, or Combat Battle Rifle. A new 30-06 battle rifle that will start spawning at level 8. A nice heavier option to the combat rifle if that's something you're looking for, with a bit of a tweaked design. This particular variant is very clearly inspired by the BAR since it is in 30-06 and shares a pretty similar profile, while still being a bit different. A very interesting rifle, but definitely a huge upgrade to the existing vanilla combat rifle. Then we have what's known as the Paratrooper Rifle. A pretty interesting conversion of this thing to what looks to me sort of like a Johnson rifle with a very funky magazine. Now, a lot of these are going to be tweaked to have removable mags, even if they should or shouldn't, including some interesting ones later that you'll really see what I mean. But this one is going to be spawning at level 12. It's going to be a nice precision rifle instead of an automatic one, allowing you to have some pretty high damage, but semi-auto only. Then we have probably my favorite thing in this whole pack, the Combat Light Machine Gun, which spawns at level 15. A very, very cool machine gun that doesn't even look like it uses any combat rifle parts. This thing is awesome. This thing is chambered in 303, which is probably my least favorite part of this weapon, but it is still a very, very cool, formidable weapon. Super cool looking, and very much something that is capable in combat. Now, this thing is innately going to have a pretty low rate of fire, but if you throw in the right attachments, this thing ends up being a very, very useful machine gun. Nothing too crazy, this wouldn't beat out something like an M249, but it is definitely very cool, and the aesthetic of this thing fits Fallout super well. And then the last of the basic weapons is known as the Counter Assault Rifle, which spawns at level 25. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure what this one is actually supposed to be based off of, but it is also chambered in 303. It is sort of just a new late-game assault rifle. Spawning after level 25, it's going to have some pretty high damage, and overall, just kind of a nice option. I like the other ones a bit more. This one's just a bit confusing to me. I don't really get what it is, but it is there. What is interesting about it, though, is that its design on the receiver and the foregrip is pretty reminiscent of the tactical stock that's available on the vanilla combat rifle. So if you decide to pair those two together, I'd say that it would make a pretty cool new unique look that maybe makes sense for a late game progression for the combat series of weapons. But that is not all. There's also the prototype PCR, one of the first uniques, which is going to be a plasma version of the combat series of weapons. It's sort of a unique version of the PPSH, or the Soviet submachine gun in this mod, that comes with a really interesting set of yellow furniture as well as some fun plasma bits that make this thing into a fun, fast-firing energy weapon. If you want to get your hands on the PCR, you're going to have to head over to the Brotherhood of Steel Pridwin, where you might find this thing somewhere in their hangar. Then we have one known as Double Trouble, which is going to be a unique version of that LMG we talked about earlier that has a magazine not only coming out of the bottom, but also the top, making this thing a 2-shot weapon, using the 2-shot legendary effect, giving you 2 shots every time you pull the trigger. If you want to get your hands on this guy, it's found over in Vault 75. Then we have a double-barrel combat shotgun, a one-of-a-kind unique known as Olympus, clearly based on the Olympia, but yet it reloads from the magazine because it still uses the combat rifle animations, which is pretty dang funny. But to be honest, the profile of this weapon looks super cool and very unique. If you want something really different, this is something I might consider checking out. If you want to get your hands on this one, it's found over in the Boston Mayoral Shelter. And then finally, we have a unique version of the paratrooper rifle known as the Parasocial Rifle, which is going to be a Gauss combat rifle. A very insane new weapon that is pretty dang cool, but also pretty dang crazy. And if you want to get your hands on this one, it's found in the basement of the Electrical Hobbyist Club. Overall, a wonderful new addition to the Combat series of weapons. If you already thought the combat rifle was too much, then you might not enjoy this, but if you thought it was fine, and you want even more variety, this is going to give you a whole lot of that. Not to mention, some fun uniques and a bunch of attachments for the existing combat rifle as well. Lots of fun to play with here, tons of customization. It's one that I really recommend. Now then, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you want to try out any of these mods, like I said before, they'll all be linked down in the description below. Additionally, if you enjoy my videos, consider dropping a like. It really helps out the channel and lets me know which kind of videos you guys like to see more of. And if you enjoy my work and you want to support me directly, you can do so using the link down in the description below to help me out over on Patreon. It is, of course, completely optional, but if you enjoy the videos I do here on YouTube or the mods I make myself on the Nexus, you can do that. It would be the best way to support me directly, but of course it is completely optional. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed once again, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!